Welcome back. Joining us via Skype from his University of Illinois office is Professor Francis Boyle. Before the break, we were discussing President Obama's latest appointment to his administration, John Podesta. Podesta has a long history in Washington. Professor, let's jump into the backstory, go a little deeper now into Podesta's role in the drive to impeach George H.W. Bush. Where did he fit in?
Well, he was critical in stopping it and enabling the Bush Jr. war against Iraq. As I said, on March 13, 2003, literally just a few days before the start of that war, Congressman John Conyers, the ranking member of the House Judiciary Committee that has jurisdiction over bills of impeachment, convened an emergency meeting of 40 to 50 of his top Democratic Party honcho advisors to debate a bill of impeachment that I had drafted against Bush and another one against Cheney and Rumsfeld to try to head that war off, to send a shot across their bow that they risked.
Professor, but were his motives purely driven by the 24 election outcome? Basically, by blocking the impeachment, going to war, allowing for the war to continue, making the Democrats look better?
Exactly. It had nothing to do with any principle at all. The debate was 2 hours long. Ramsey and I argued the case for impeachment. Almost everyone else there pretty much was not against impeachment and was against the war. So we argued all those issues on the merits, constitutional law, international law, things of that matter, until we got to Podesta. And then it was nothing more than grubby partisan politics, which was Podesta's argument, which shows how insidious he was. Here, the country was on the verge of war. We all knew this was going to be a catastrophe. Indeed, that war killed maybe 1.5 million Iraqis and over 5,000 U.S. troops, depending on how you want to count it. If you accept the government's figures as valid, which I do not.
So Podesta was willing to sacrifice all of those lives for partisan politics.
That's correct. He was the only one there out of 40 to 50 top advisors for the Democratic Party. And I want to make it clear, I'm a political independent. So I was invited there because of my expertise and because it was my draft bill of impeachment that was sitting on the table there for everyone to consider. Podesta, unlike everyone else there who was arguing substantive issues, so okay, and I dealt with them, Ramsey Clark dealt with them.
Well, let's flash forward now.
Let me finish, though, what he said precisely. What he said precisely was, well, I'm here representing the Democratic National Committee, and we believe that this bill of impeachment will hurt our presidential candidate in 2004. Well, that was completely preposterous because in March of 2003, no one knew who the Democratic Party candidate was going to be in 2004. So I guess the theory here was that as you correctly point out, for the Democrats to take an anti-war position would hurt them in 2004. So it was really that statement by Podesta himself, and I'll never forget that statement, that turned the tide against impeachment. And as we walked out of the room after 2 hours of very vigorous debate, most of the people there were lawyers, not everyone. I turned to Ramsey and I said, Ramsey, I don't understand. Why didn't they take me up on my offer to stay here, polish up this bill of impeachment, and put it in right away to try to head off this war? And Ramsey said to me, quote, I think most of the people there want this war, unquote. So we have to understand that the Democratic Party establishment, not Congressman Conyers, his heart was in the right place, but the whole Democratic Party establishment, as encapsulated, as it were, by Podesta, supported that war against Iraq. And it was Podesta then that really turned the tide and prevented Congressman Conyers from introducing my bill of impeachment. And it had nothing to do with the merits. All it had to do with, from his perspective, is helping the Democrats win in 2004. And all those people died.
That's what I want to ask. Flash forward now, 2013, Podesta is now standing beside President Obama in the administration, and he's willing to sacrifice millions of Iraqis, thousands of American troops just for political posturing for an election. And with 2016 on the horizon, what does that mean? What could that possibly mean?
Well, we could see the typical
What will he be sacrificing now?
The wag the dog phenomenon. That is promoting a war, figuring it might help the Democrats in 2016. Right now, with the rollout of Obamacare being such a disaster, I guess Obama figures he's going to have to do something. So he brings in Podesta. So anything goes with this man. He has no principles at all. He's completely ruthless, unprincipled, and a warmonger. And all he cares about is getting Democrats elected in 2014 and then again in 2016. And I take it getting Mrs. Clinton elected president in 2016 if she should so run.
Now, what about the calls for impeachment of President Obama? Who's echoing those now, and on what grounds are they standing?
Well, there are now large numbers of calls all over the country for the impeachment of President Obama for many reasons. And indeed, now many members of Congress have said he should be impeached for a variety of reasons. I'm not going to go through all those reasons here, but certainly looking at articles of impeachment, which, by the way, I did draw up for the late, great Congressman Henry B. Gonzalez against Bush Sr. In his war against Iraq, which the congressman did introduce. And later on, Bush Sr. admitted that the reason he did not march all the way to Baghdad was that he feared impeachment. So our effort back in 1991 did have an impact, and that was the reason why I was pushing this campaign to impeach Bush Jr., that is to have an impact. Now, with respect to President Obama, certainly there are two articles of impeachment that can be done immediately without hearings. And that would be his unconstitutional war against Libya with no authorization from the United States Congress in violation of the War Powers Clause of the Constitution and Congress's own War Powers Resolution of 1973. And then the second article of impeachment that, again, would not require hearings would be the Obama decision to murder United States citizens in violation of the 4th, 5th, 6th Amendment and the rest of the Bill of Rights in his so-called white paper, which is based upon a so far unreleased Department of Justice memorandum done by David Barron of Harvard Law School now and Marty Letterman of Georgetown Law School. And I should point out how, again, insidious Obama is. He recently nominated David Barron for a seat on the United States Court of Appeals for the First Circuit, which is headquartered there in Boston. I'm licensed to practice law before the First Circuit. So notice here, it's a reward, it's a payoff. Barron drafted the opinion letter saying Obama could go out and murder United States citizens and get away with it. And now Obama is giving him a very high-level position on the U.S. Court of Appeals system, where he will be warming the bench for the United States Supreme Court. This is a real scandal, and I would hope the people in the Boston area, New England, would get up in arms and say, we do not want a murderer and a war criminal, which is what Barron is, sitting on the U.S. Court of Appeals for the First Circuit, let alone on the United States Supreme Court. So those are two articles of impeachment that would require no hearings at all. Those are what I would say are slam dunk articles of impeachment. We simply need a member of Congress willing to introduce them.
Are there any members of Congress who are willing to do so?
Well, Congressman Jones has sort of tiptoed around impeachment, but he has not introduced articles of impeachment yet, or a bill of impeachment. He threatened to do so over Syria, but then he didn't do it. We now know that Obama also lied about the chemical weapons in Syria. That came out in the Cy Hirsch expose last week. So here he's lying about war, just like his predecessor, George Bush Jr. did too. If you want the account of that impeachment effort against Bush Jr. and the debate with Podesta, you can find it documented in my book, Tackling America's Toughest Questions. And then I have a new book that just came out about the Obama war against Libya, entitled Destroying Libya and World Order. So this man is extremely dangerous. He will stop at nothing. He now is moving toward, I would say, outright aggression towards China. And anything could go wrong over there in the South China Sea. Anything could go wrong.
So even if Obama were relieved from office, wouldn't Biden simply pursue nearly an identical policy in the Oval Office?
Well, Biden's a known quantity over the years. I think we have seen in this administration Biden giving Obama advice to be more cautious on a variety of issues. So hopefully we can pray for some more responsible leadership by Biden. I don't know what more to say beyond that, but certainly Obama is completely reckless what he did to Libya, what he was threatening to do to Syria, now what he is threatening to do to China. The Obama administration has said they're now prepared to go to war with China over these little rocks, the Diaoyu Islands. It's completely preposterous. And second, if you read the U.S.-Japan self-defense treaty, the president cannot decide to put us to war. Only Congress can make that decision. And yet he and Hagel and Kerry are threatening to go to war if something goes wrong over there. And we've already had the one incident with the Chinese aircraft carrier that clearly the U.S. ship was surveying, and it was cut off from this surveillance. It clearly was provocative what we were doing there. And then sending those nuclear-capable aircraft right off over the Diaoyu Islands, that even the United States government recognizes that Japan is not sovereign over these islands.
So is the United States with Obama as commander-in-chief, simply banging the drums of war, saber rattling, and touching the border of China just to get a rise out of them? I mean, what is the purpose of these types of maneuvers?
Well, it's as you said, we're rattling the cage of the tiger. That's correct. It's extremely dangerous situation.
But why? Why? I'm trying to get to the bottom of why they would want to ruffle their feathers.
Well, because the United States government still believes that we rule the world, and China is the emergence of China is challenging our right to rule the world as we see fit in that region of the world, which is right off the coast of China. We would never tolerate that here. China doing the same thing in the Western Hemisphere. We have the Monroe Doctrine, but we are not prepared to recognize that China might have a sphere of influence in this region. So we're challenging them. And right now, as of now, it does not appear the Chinese are going to back down. And we are supporting these militarists in Japan. After World War II, we made the mistake of never denazifying Japan. We did haphazardly denazify Germany. I think the German people, got the message certainly a generation later, but the ruling class in Japan, not ordinary Japanese people, but the ruling class, these are the sons and the daughters of the same people who gave us World War II. And they're highly militaristic. And rather than reining them in and sitting on them, we are encouraging them. We are enabling them. We are supporting them.
All right. Professor, thanks for joining us with that insight.
Well, thank you very much. Again, my best to all my former friends in Boston, and I guess my future friends in Southern Florida.
All right. Thanks again. Professor Francis Boyle right here on WHDT World News. Stay tuned. We have the rest of today's headlines, all of the news from Hollywood, California, and a full report on the weather. Stay tuned.